This basically confirms it, as the writing is on the wall for one New York Rangers defenseman, as they signed another defenseman to a long-term contract extension. We're going to get into Chris Drury's plans for this year's trade deadline and some shocking comments from Ryan Lindgren on being traded. We're going to break it down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the New York Rangers ahead of the trade deadline, ahead of the playoffs, in a playoff race that they're desperately trying to get back into, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, some very interesting comments from Ryan Lindgren over the last day, and this was from the Post. This was from Larry Brooks, and again, very interesting article here. And Lindgren talks to the Post about trade rumors. It's tough. It's kind of a first for me, so obviously it's hard. I don't want to go anywhere. Now, Ryan Lindgren is an absolute warrior for this team. I mean, Larry Brooks came out last week and defended him. I would even defend him. I think that people who think, this guy doesn't lay it on the line, you're wrong. This guy absolutely has laid his body on the line, and he's still relatively young, and you can see his body breaking down for this New York Rangers team. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't move on from him at this year's trade deadline. I think it is time, and again, that's my opinion, but we'll go through some of the stuff here. Again, a quote that stood out to me in this article is from Brooksy: "If the New York Rangers are in playoff position and establish themselves as a legit Eastern Conference contender, it is becoming more and more difficult to envision the hierarchy breaking up the Lindgren-Fox tandem by sending Lindgren away as a rental property for a draft choice in return." And obviously this Twitter user said, yeah, because Ryan Lindgren is going to be the reason why this team makes a cup run. This organization is hilarious. Drury gets blinded once again. And anyway, he went on to say so on and so forth if they can get a high draft pick for Ryan Lindgren. And that's kind of where I'm standing right now. Like Brooksy says, if they're in playoff position, if they look like they can actually contend this year all of a sudden, right, after the start that they had, I still think that you move off of Ryan Lindgren. You should. The time is now. The contract that they signed him to allows you to do this. There's teams out there that want a player like Ryan Lindgren that would pay a pretty decent price for Ryan Lindgren. You're getting younger. Just do it. This is the time to do it. The contract that you signed him to last season allows you to do this. You should do it. This is the time. And Lindgren, this is from the Rangers Ed podcast, Lindgren is the easiest piece to deal with for the New York Rangers. If teams are only offering a second to a fifth round pick range and the team has a chance to make the playoffs, you keep him and self-rent him, then let him walk. I don't believe this is, what I think that they do here is, even if you're going to make the playoffs and you be a contender, call somebody up like Victor Mancini, give them the experience, right? I don't know if the Rangers are going to win a Stanley Cup this year. I'm not sure that this team is built for that this season specifically. I think that they are retooling on the fly, and Chris Drury has some big things that he wants to do to get like a JT Miller, something like that. Like, I think he still wants to make a big splash. But anyway, I think that, the best course of action is to trade him. Trade him, even if you're going to make the playoffs. Let a younger guy come into the lineup and take that spot because you can it's good asset management. You never know what's going to happen in free agency this summer. So that's just how I feel about it. And the other monkey wrench in the whole situation here is Will Borgen's new contract, right? This screams to me like you're moving on from Ryan Lindgren, and we'll get into another reason why in just a second. But as part of Will Borgen's deal, he has a no movement clause the rest of 2024-25, then partial trade protection for most of the rest of the deal. So again, next year it's a full no trade, then it's a 15-team no trade, then it's a 10-team no trade, then it's a 6-team no trade, and then none in the last year, so they can move off of him in the last year. But he's only going to be 33. I actually think, as we sat on this contract for a few days here, it's actually a really good contract for the New York Rangers. Now, again, there's a lot of fan reaction about this. Ryan Lindgren was a warrior. He was fantastic at his peak. The Rangers have not enjoyed as much success as they would have without him, and I think that's 100% true. But this is kind of where I fall on it as well. All of these things are in the past tense. He's having a tough season. You can see his body's breaking down on him, and he's still relatively young. There are teams out there that would want this guy. Do proper asset management here. Trade him at the trade deadline. Get a younger guy to come up like Victor Mancini and play in the playoffs if you do make the playoffs, which is still up in the air at this point. do proper asset management with this, get some picks for him. I think there's teams out there that would be interested in his services. And again, he's been great. I have always called him, since we started the channel here, the Robin to Adam Fox's Batman, right? I've always said that. I still believe it to a degree. Like, I think it's fun still. And, you have all those memories of them playing together and playing some good minutes together. This is from just a couple games ago, the advanced analytics for the Rangers this year. It's not good. It hasn't been good. Lingren and Fox have been awful together in terms of this. Look at that. It's horrible, right? So they have not been good together. He's not having a great season. He hasn't been the same since his early season injury, his whatever happened with his face. And obviously he was wearing the fishbowl for a while. So very interesting there. Again, the advanced analytics are not on his side this year. He has not been good. And if you take a look at his stats this year as well, he's never going to be like a heavy offensive guy, right? But he does play a lot of minutes still. He is costing the Rangers in some regard. Sometimes there was a game not too long ago against the Chicago Blackhawks where he was heavily out of position on the winning goal, or a goal that made a difference in the game. And he has 12 points this season in 44 games. So it hasn't been a good season for him. And again, these are just the surface layer stats. But if you look at the advanced analytics, like I just brought up too, having a tough season, Ryan Lindgren is now. Everyone, the question of the hour really is, where does he go? Where is Ryan Lindgren going? And I thought this report was very interesting on 32 Thoughts that Elliot Friedman believes that the Winnipeg Jets are looking for a center and defense help, and not a big fish by all accounts, right? They're not looking to go out and trade for one of the better defensemen in the league. They're looking for defense depth. So who's better than a Ryan Lindgren, right? Who can come in, has that experience for them, of course, right? I know I just talked for about 5 minutes on why Lindgren shouldn't be a New York Ranger past this year's trade deadline. But for another team like the Jets, Ryan Lindgren's been to a couple Eastern Conference finals. He knows what it takes to win, to go a couple rounds deep in the playoffs. That's what the Jets are trying to accomplish this year. So I think that it's an interesting fit in that way. I think that it could end up happening because they're, again, the Jets are looking for help at center, on defense. So I think it's a very interesting trade option for the New York Rangers. But again, I think that you have to move off Ryan Lindgren. I know that he says that it's tough. He doesn't want to move away from New York. He wants to stay with the Rangers, which is, very refreshing at times too. Like, I think a lot of these guys, again, I've said it time and time again, especially this year, all of them want to be New York Rangers, and some of them want to, like the other half of that, want to be New York Rangers, but under their terms. This is a guy who just wants to be here and play hockey and put his body on the line for the team. So you have to love that as a fan. That is everything you want in a player. But at the same time, you can't get blinded by stuff like that, and then the team gets worse because of it, and you're holding on to players for too long. You're giving them too much money. So this is the time, I believe, to move on from Ryan Lindgren. And again, I think he's a fantastic player. I think that he's put in a great body of work with the New York Rangers, and I love him as a player, but I think you have to start looking about the future a little bit at this point because things are about to turn, especially next season. And even if you look like you're going to make the playoffs this year, give a younger guy a shot, trade this guy away so you can get some assets in return just so you don't lose him for nothing, and give a younger guy a shot in the playoffs to get that experience. But let me know what you think about this whole thing in the comments. Obviously, he doesn't want to leave New York, but I think it could be time for Ryan Lindgren to be traded. So let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.